good? To be a factor in these streets. That's the vibe I'm on this moment. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Now, before I go off into Never Never Land, I want to talk about a short that I seen that had Barry White in it. The Arsenio Hall show. Okay. I am a Barry White fan. Okay. The tone of his voice is captivating. Not many artists can say they captivate people. They may put it in a song, but that don't necessarily mean it's real. Mr. Barry White said, in so many words, he is a God, a self-made God. Interesting. The conversation that the archangels are having about that statement is that it was not repeated correctly in the beginning. So let's talk about it. A self-made God. Some will attribute being a self-made God to a D-E-M-I-G-O-D. And that is not the case. All of the original D-E-M-I-G-O-Ds are thrones. I know that there's a misconception that pantheons are demis, but they are not. I know because I am a pantheon somewhere. When the statement, ye, God, is oneself, was said, what should have been mentioned is gotta see. Ye are gotta see, not ye are goddess. Ye are gods. Ye are gotta see. Because we're not from that era, we don't know what it means. So when someone heard it, they wrote it as ye are gods. And this is how misinformation gets repeated and accepted throughout time. Gotta see. Now he also mentioned beings. He didn't say human, he said beings. Let's talk about that. When I say that we are beings, that's something totally different. That means we will always be. There's a misconception that everyone that is created is beings, and that is not the case. It's a certain era and a certain paradigm. When you hear me say the word twice, it is because it means something different for our era. You'll notice this as you get older. You'll say the definition of a word changed because it changes all the time. Ye are gotta see. There's only one big G. And this is why I say the big G, not the little one. Because until it is corrected, we have to be informed correctly. Now, some may say that that is disrespectful to call yourself a G-O-D, but I beg to differ. Because in places where he turned his back on us, that's what we became. So you put reincarnation in there and incarnation. That is telling. When you are told that you are a pantheon, someplace, not every place, this is where titles and ranks come in. That means you were present somewhere where he was not. He's always been looking and listening, but he was not present there. That means he did not talk to you. Y'all know what I'm talking about? And so now that he has graced us with his graciousness, some of us, we can understand why he turned his back. It is gotta see, not goddess. There's no defish for that. And the reason for it is because it's not in our era. So that's telling us that it's not for everyone. A human being. You don't really hear people say they are human beings. They say we are all human. That is telling you something. They're telling a story. Now, because it appears to be no one in here at this moment, we're going to talk about the Senecasi, because some of you don't realize that he is a factor, that he's been out for a very long time. The thing about when y'all see me present these OGs, O-L-E, y'all don't get it, that they have longevity, that these are men and some women that I grew up listening to. So that means in my teens, I knew who D-Shot was. When you see them, you don't say these is old men, because their energy is not one of old men. When I talked about the appearance, for some of us, if you are in your 50s, 60s, and some 70s, you don't look like your grandparents and your fathers did at that age. This is a fact. Some of you are looking for that that live that I did when the title had facts in it. I know that it's not out. At least it wasn't out when I checked. And that is also telling. I put things out. I share them to my community section when I want the masses to see it. If it uploads automatically by itself, that means the big G wants the masses to see it. I kind of know. I kind of know what needs to be presented and what doesn't. Now, the specs, the details for my era has to be realized. And that is also telling. And what that means is the specifics of what's taking place in someone's life is not a factor to me, because it's not affecting me directly. If it were to affect me directly, I would know the specifics of it. Someone is saying, gotta see how do you spell it, which is already something that I was thinking about as I decided I was going to make this the topic of this live. The spelling is going to be different for everyone. Y'all have to understand that there's different nationalities. There's different cultural beliefs. There's different factors that would attribute to how you spell things, which brings me back to the point that I was saying when I was talking about when you hear me say words twice. Sometimes when I'm doing my work, certain things have to be stated because of who is listening. If I'm convening with the other Arkansas, Asikinias, they'll say, this is the right word. And I say, no, it's not. It's not the right word. This is the conversations that we have. because they want something stated a certain way. And I have to remind them that for my paradigm, it means something different. So again, the original way of speaking is accurate. They know it's accurate, but the definition has changed. And that tends to happen when you have different eras. So y'all remember that. The stuff that I used to use to research words, I don't use anymore because even that protocol has changed. So a lot of you are starting to realize that you are somewhere else at any given moment because of your devices, the way things are presented to you. The mint, put argue in front of it, was upgrades. If a system were to upgrade every day, we would have no peace. We wouldn't be able to work. There's no way that you can upgrade a system every day and it be functional. Y'all have to keep in mind that there are corps that have been since 100 years. And if they're not updating their, upgrading their systems weekly, it is for a reason. Not everybody is hip to everything that is going on currently. And there's factors, right? You got elderly people. They need to still be in the loop. And if you make everything so high tech, so advanced, it doesn't give them time to catch up. So if you come in, put some thumbs up, put some emotions up in here, you know. I've already dropped the names. Now maybe throughout the day, I'll be doing some name dropping. But my name dropping ain't like yours. If I leave a nasty taste in someone's mouth, it is because they attempted to hakaniha me. And when it was caught, they looked stupid. I'm sitting here having my coffee. Isifina. Isifana si ashakatina garasi. You are not a goddess. Perfect example. You know, people hear these words and they decide they sound refined, elegant, unique, and they want to become it, but it's not like that. You know, these words have meanings, they have ranks, they have titles. A lot of people don't want to hear that. You're talking to a goddess. I am a goddess. You don't like that? There was a point when I went through a conscious gate that I said, I am a god. I'm a goddess. I am a mini god, not DEMI. And the reason why I said it is because of the exact same reason Barry White addressed it in his interview. Because you figure the big G gave you all of these powers to create, to procreate, to build, to destroy, to command. When people that don't have no sense hear stuff like that, they do the opposite. They're not thinking of the collective. They're not thinking of what can I do to better the world. They're thinking of what they could do to better themselves, which is fine, but that's not God level. And henceforth, now you understand why you are not one. Because you're not thinking of the masses, you're thinking of yourself. If the big G decided that he was only going to think of his segments, because the big G has many, then we wouldn't be. There's so many different creation stories. All of those are narrations of what someone felt about the big G. Some had visions, and some actually spoke to him. Now, when I say that I speak to God, for some that's a big thing. But if a pastor or a preacher say it, then hallelujah, go ahead, pastor. He is anointed. You see what I'm talking about? I've already discussed. I've already said publicly, I did this with the astrologers too. If there's any weak points that you see in anything that I say, then talk to me about it. We can't say that no one sees either, or no one's seen either. No one knows that either is here. No one knows that she has this belief, because it is common knowledge. There's nothing hidden. And when I speak about stuff that individuals don't expect me to know about, no one says nothing. Now that I'm not in the tarot energy and I'm in the philosophy energy, no one wants to talk because they know it. What y'all gotta realize is, to become an official minister, pastor, preacher, whatever, you have to go to school. You have to have a certain type of education level. And that blueprint in itself is a guided blueprint, just like any course you would take that would give you any type of AA, BA, master's, doctrine. There's a certain blueprint that you have to follow to achieve that, because otherwise you just be in tutelage for the rest of your life. They do it to simplify it. So they go to school as theologists, not theologian. They get all of this information, which is a lot. However, it's someone else's belief about the man upstairs. And because of it, they have a certificate that says, I am qualified to say these things. It is recognized, it is respected, and therefore they have a high ranking. But not everyone that you see in the big house or the little one is certified. You don't go in there and say, pastor, minister, preacher, can I see your certificate? Which certifies you to be able to say the things that you say. Greetings, fanglories. You know, and that's important. No one calls it out when it's common knowledge, but that don't mean it's right. Which takes me on that pathway that I talked about when I spoke about the conscious gates. Regardless if the big G wants this presented to the masses or not, this is something that I have to talk about. So if it gets shared, if it gets uploaded, great. If it don't, oh well, because I did my part. When you take a certain pathway, it leads you somewhere. This is something we all know. You get in your car, you say, I'm going to work. The pathway you take takes you to work. If it was so easy for you to just create content and upload it and everyone see it, then it would be a whole big old mess of numbers everywhere, coding everywhere. It just don't make sense. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I did take coding in college. When I seen it, I said, this look crazy. You mean to tell me all of these sequences of numbers, which they call codes, makes up a web page? The average person does not realize that I can create my own web page with HTML. Some of y'all pay good money to have that did. I did it in my 20s. The behind the scenes is always mysterious. The behind the scenes, the making of everything. If you were to sit back and watch a building constructed, you would say all of this goes into creating a foundation. Then you have the coverings. There's so much inside of a wall to make it easier for you to live inside of that domain. That's what I'm talking about. The average person is not going to say, oh, all of these numbers, coding, I see it, I could do that. Because it looks confusing. If a page pops up and it's black and all you see is white codes, and then you switch back to the final display, what it looks like in the end, you're not gonna say, I know how to do that. I know where this code is gonna pop up here on this page. I know where this picture is gonna be placed. I know where this hypertext link is. You're not gonna do that. But because I, or possibly you, make it look so easy, they figure they could do that. They say that you are a genius when you could do computer technology, which is right. It's a form of engineering. But they don't say Ether is a genius because she understands doctrine. It's only when they know for a fact that they can't do something. When you gotta pay to have something did, that means you don't have the ability to do it yourself. I remember I said at one point in my 30s that I would prefer a man that could build a home from scratch, right? You got a man that could build a home. I mean, like really build one. That's what I want. I want a carpenter. Okay? Or something like that. 10, 20 years, about 10, 15 years later, I run across men and some women building homes from clay. They're somewhere in Amazon or Monaco or something like that. And they're with their bare hands. And it's sturdy. That's not something that the average person, you looking at it, you looking at this person build a home with their bare hands. You're not gonna say I could do that. Because you don't know what compound to use. You don't know if something gonna cave in. You know what I'm saying? My father, my biological father, was a carpenter as well. Not by trade. He knew how to lay linoleum, to fix things. Not a mechanic. Anything broke in the house, my father fixed it. We didn't grow up with peeling walls and the floor coming up because he was down there making sure all of that was together. He even built his own room in his house, in the garage. So I didn't grow up around no weak men. They always had the ability, the know-it-all, to get things done. So I just don't want no average type. So when somebody say, "Oh, she ain't my type," usually they ain't about nothing though. So it don't really make no difference. You know, I'm not missing out. Very reason why I choose to keep my screen black, because that'll put me off somewhere else. Okay, I am representing the clan of intelligent so-called black women. Someone said she is opening up the door for women, black women occultists. And I said, they are correct, because that's not something that you see every day. And because of this, people are not going to be so leery of the things that they don't understand. What I said was, this woman, not female, was pushing her protection away by the things that she would say. It is ignorance. When someone say ignorance, that leaves like it's that word ignorance and ignorance leaves an imprint on you. It is some would perceive that as disrespectful because of the way it makes you feel. But it's actually a thing. When you're ignorant, it doesn't mean that you're not worthy or anything. That means you don't understand something. And because of the way it makes people feel, they get, upset about it. But if you gotta go to college, to university, to school to be able to learn something, at one point you were ignorant. So you're being guided. You're being guided on a certain path. This is all you need to know to get to point B. That's all I'm saying. What I said was that I, at one point, wanted to be in LAW. That's what I said. When I figured out, right, that this world was so big and that you could have any type of occupation anyone could ever think of, I said, how do you choose what you want to be? Because there's so much in the world you could be. So when I got the notion to enter into college, the first thing I went for was the beauty industry, behind the scenes. I would make like collages of is the fashion. I geared everything towards fashion. That's when I first initially entered. And then I said, this alright, but that's not what I want to do. So when I re-entered back into college, of course you take your prereqs. But they don't tell you when you go into that institution. It's like they do an orientation, but it's not done right. They may have changed it. They may have changed it since my time, but they tell you the basics. Take your prereqs because once those is all done, you could go for your major, okay? Because when you go into college, right, the belief is that you already know what your major gonna be, or around about. So if you put all of these courses on your roster and little of the prereqs, what you're gonna find is you're gonna drop a whole bunch of classes. And that's what happened because what I was doing was like fashion editing, like you see the models on the runway, like, you know, that's what when I went in towards the fashion side of things. This was after I had already been to barbering, to beauty school. I had already been there. So I went in to the fashion side. But once I realized that you could take intro classes, it changed. Because the intro class is your introduction to something. And when I took an intro into LAW, it was the attorney, you know, the ERS, put a LAW in front of it. And what he said during his spiel sent me in the other direction. Some may say that that was the wrong thing to do, but now I understand that that was God's plan. He didn't want me in that field for a lot of different reasons. And so I've took a lot of intros. I have been in a lot of different trades and all of that, and you know, you're trying to find your way. You're trying to find your way. The most interesting, oh, the most interesting was production. I put a lot of time into production, video production, sound, film. I spent a lot of time in that. And you know, some may say that it's all in the same niche, and you're correct because it's all about editing. What is going on over there? You know, but that none of that stuff, you know, well, I use it, but not the way I thought I was going to use it. Okay, this is why I know about continuity. This is why I know about 3-point light setups. This is how I know about sound production. I know the ins and outs of how to produce a video because I took it in college. I also took HTML coding. I was also in medical. At one point, I was a professional school bus driver. You know, you can say that I'm a high achiever. But because the money ain't high, because that's what people respect. If you don't have no money behind your education, then they see it is obsolete. You know. So I don't know. Somebody needed to hear it. The initial topic was gotta see, because what was printed on the short of the Barry White interview with Arsenio Hall was ye are gods. And this is the big thing in the conscious community. But when the big G turns your back, that's what happens. At some point, one of the originals said, we can handle this ourselves. And when that happened, he said, all right, you know, and he did a whoop-de-doo, and then you didn't hear from him. And then when he showed us some mercy, we got all of these different saviors because he was showing us signs that he was real. Now, Where I'm at, he is definitely real. People know that he is real because he is communicating. And the voice that he chooses to use with us is one that sounds like a black man. The big G could talk any type of language. I asked the big G to tell an animal or something. To tell an animal something. Animals don't use English. And you think he didn't tell it? He told it exactly what I said. The same with the trees. Regardless if the tree is his original tree or not, he speaks a language to them that'll make them grow or make them know more. Greetings. How you doing? Naturally, you. You know, at some point I did say that I have the same Gias, put a in front of it, as a tree because I felt I didn't need it. I know how to be respectful. I know what should be said, what shouldn't be said. At one point, I didn't know when to say it. I can admit that. But I know how to be respectful to people. If it don't feel right, I'm not going to do it. So I felt I didn't need that doctrine. And most angels don't. But when you take into consideration incarnation, reincarnation, that means you need to be present somewhere so you can learn a lesson. And so when we're talking about being gods, that's not for every humane. How about that? Some of you ain't even humane. You can't. You can't. The what some want to say is that God can be wrathful, and He definitely can be. But if you don't even know the goodness of the man upstairs, how can you advocate for His wrath? You have not felt His wrath. Now you talk to some of them originals, okay, and they'll tell you. Greetings, greetings, Miss Sap. I hope you all are enjoying those behind the scenes readings. I really do appreciate y'all. I'm working on that. It's about the future, so I gotta keep that in mind. But I'm working on it. So when y'all see it, my members specifically, y'all gotta understand. Because I gotta remind y'all, because that's what I'm here for. Not every month that you see is gonna be talking about something that you experience. Not every month. And you also gotta take into consideration your North Node. Are you in your North Node energy? Because if you're in your North Node energy, that means you're gonna have to you're gonna have to look at it from two different perspectives. Your zodiac sun sign and your North Node. So say, like me, I'm a Cancer, right? My North Node is Libra. So I have to look at it from the Cancer perspective and the Libra perspective. Y'all get what I'm talking about? I appreciate you too. So keep that in mind. Some of the stuff you see is going to be confirmation about what is taking place in your environment to someone else. Y'all done been with me long enough to realize that happens a lot. And you already know what that means. That means you are bearing witness to something, and that is what you're being called to do, bear witness to something. If in that case you have a unique makeup mishap, that is an indication of incarnation somewhere else. When it shows up like that, that means you're present here and you have to be present over there. And what you're learning is the same attributes of that zodiac sun sign and moon. Yeah, you definitely have a unique a makeup there. I really wish that you would get a one-on-one with me because there's things that you need to know. Um, when you see the same zodiac sun sign like that, you have sun sign, you have a rising, you have a moon. That means that somewhere along the line, you didn't make it in several different places. And so you're being fast tracked because you indeed ascended. hmm You indeed ascended. And so you're being fast tracked. When the big G does that to you, he sees favor. Is favor in you. Now others might not see it that way, especially if you were the quote unquote black sheep. People's perception about the way the big G gets down is not accurate. They'll say, "Oh well, you done been through this, that, and the third. You must not have favor." That's not the case. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this here.